Cantor Paul is off this week as he held down the bima last week when I wasn't here, and he's taking a week off today. It's good to be with you. Most of you I know very well. There are a few new faces today too, and I hope to get to meet you when the service ends today as well. We're going to begin on page 24 in our Siddur with the words of Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We turn to pages 2 and 3. I invite everybody who's comfortably able to do so to please rise. Let's all read together the English on the top of page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. You may be seated. We turn to pages 20 and 21. And we take a moment to reflect on the week that has passed. We've had to start dating our checks differently this week. For those who still have checks. But we take a few moments to reflect on the week and to pause on each day, on its challenges and on its blessings, to breathe and to center ourselves, and then we'll come back together and sing Lecha Dodi. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to verse 9, I'll invite those of you in the sanctuary who can comfortably do so to rise and face the door from which we entered to welcome the Shabbat presence into our midst. And those of you at home, I'll invite you to turn toward the doors of your home to welcome that presence and that nishama yetera, that extra soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat. Lecha Dodi. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. La 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ul tiferet v'litchila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat chila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Hit'oreri, kiva orech kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabla. Boi v'shalom ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha uv'zola, בתוך אמוני המסגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. יא לה 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 לחדותי, לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך לחדותי, לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לה 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 לחדותי, לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך לחדותי, לקראת קלה, בני שבת נקבלה. We're going to continue on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadal shemei Rabbah, b'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uvizman kariv, veimeru, amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam u'lomei almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitnoman, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shmei dekudesha, berechu, le'ela min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma, v'imeru, amen. Baruch Hu, our call to prayer, page 28. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed, hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Last three lines in the Hebrew, page 30. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed, baruch ata Adonai, hamariv, haravi. Page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? B'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu leolamim, baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, page 34 and 35. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. You may be seated. Page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uvshochbecha uvkumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'hitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim Liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We are always crossing from one place to another, from one challenge to the next, from one moment to the next. You know, our tradition teaches that each moment, each breath, right, is an opportunity to make tshuva, to return. We think of tshuva as repentance or turning. We think about it as a Yom Kippur thing or a High Holy Day thing. But really, it's an every moment thing, that each time we take a breath, we can pull ourselves back in and try to be on the path that we want to be on. And no matter where we are, the next conscious breath we take, we can recorrect and move in a new direction, whatever that might be. And so each moment is an opportunity to cross through, to break out of our old habits, the challenges that are the internal ones, not the ones necessarily that are keeping us from being who we need to be from the outside, but those that are on the inside. We can cross through that sea. We can cross through those challenges and come to the other side and breathe anew a breath of freedom. Micha Mocha, our song of freedom, page 40. Yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 Micha Mocha bailim Adonai כמוך נדר בקודש לא ראיתי לראות. עושה פלא, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקעים לפני משה ומרים, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקעים לפני משה ומרים, ידה די 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 די, ידה די די די, ידה די 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 די, ידה די די די, yada die 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 yada die 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 yai die 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 Zezeli anu ve'ameru Adonai imloch leolam leolam va'ed yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 ונאמר כיבד אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 Gal Yisrael Amen 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 Hashkivenu gives us the image of a sukkah. But it's not a physical sukkah like we build during Sukkot. It is a spiritual one. We ask God to spread a sukkot shalom, a sukkah of peace over us, a sense of wholeness and well-being, to let us end each day with that sense and to begin each day with a sense of gratitude, with a sense of fully embracing the potential in each day. Hashkivenu, page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ushmor tzeitenu uvoeinu Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha Ushmor tzeitenu uvoeinu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom Vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim Baruch atah Adonai Haporei sukat shalom Aleinu Israel ve'al Yerushalayim. The more different my weeks are from week to week, the more I appreciate sometimes Shabbat. I always appreciate Shabbat, the opportunity to pause, to breathe, to reflect. But I think about, last week for Shabbat I was in New York, and then I just drove home today from the Sierras. Yesterday I couldn't have driven home. It was too much snow yesterday. I wouldn't have been able to drive home. The road was closed. Different places. And then, no matter what's going on, whether it's in a hotel room in New York City or whether it's back here in Pomona or whether it's in Israel or wherever we might be, that Shabbat is it's an opportunity to push everything else aside and to just be present with myself, with whoever I'm with my family, with my community, with my God, and to have that time. In one of the classes that I've been teaching, we were looking at the various versions of the Ten Commandments, and in one place we have Zachor et Yom HaShabbat v'yikadshehu, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. We have that in Leviticus. And in Deuteronomy we have Shamor et HaShabbat. We have observe or guard the Shabbat. It was being used for a different reason in the text that I was teaching, but I sort of like for myself, and maybe it's for some of you as liberal Jews who might not be traditionally Shabbat observant in the sense of all the don'ts that are part of the Orthodox world of Shabbat observance, as well as all the do's, right, that are there. But I always like to think, even when I'm not really observing fully the Shabbat in one way or another, that I always have the opportunity to remember Shabbat, to gather for a few minutes even and light candles, or maybe electric candles if it's in a hotel room, or whatever those might be, and to gather with those I am and to take that moment. And so Shamor v'Zachor, we have these different opportunities, different ways for us to make this time holy for ourselves. Vishamru, we give thanks for the Shabbat, page 44. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, lasot et HaShabbat, lidorotam berit olam. Vishamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, lasot et HaShabbat, lidorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, Oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, lasot et HaShabbat, lidorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, v'shamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabbat, lasot et hashabbat, lidorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Turn to page 46. If you're comfortably able to do so, I invite you to rise. Adonai sifatai tivtach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 48. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen. Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah. Page 50. Atagi bor leolam Adonai, mechaye hakol ata, rav lehoshia, mashiv haruach, umorid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofech olim, umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melach. Melech meimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman ata l'hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai Mechaye HaKol. Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please take a few moments for silent prayer for the text of your own heart. You can use the words of the Siddur through page 62, 63. When you're through, please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom to everybody out there and also online. Kind of wanted to be a little more festive tonight with the first week of the new year. So a couple of years back, at the height of COVID, I concocted an arrangement of tunes utilizing Auld Lang Syne, which I realize is after the fact. But what the heck, just it makes for a good song, and a couple tunes from Fiddler on the Roof. So I don't think I've ever played it live in person. It was always just online. So this is Auld Lang Syne and a medley of tunes from Fiddler on the Roof for the new year.
Shabbat Shalom. So we finish the book of Genesis this week with Vayechi, and we move into that next chapter, right? The whole book of Genesis has been the story of a family. Once we get past creation, starts with creation. Then after that, once we get to Abraham, right, with Lech Lecha, we have a story of a family that is going through. And as we move into Exodus, we begin to move into the story of a people. And these two are obviously connected, but it's really through the experience of the Egyptian experience and the Exodus that we become a people. This week's portion, Vayechi, chronicles the deaths of Jacob and his son Joseph, both of whom provide explicit instructions regarding their burials. Just before his death, Jacob summons Joseph to make him swear to bury him in Canaan, in the land of Israel. He later tells the rest of his sons he wishes to be buried in the cave of Machpelah alongside his grandparents, parents, and his wife, Leah. Joseph, too, wishes to be buried not in Egypt, but in Canaan, and instructs his brothers to carry his bones there when God brings them to the promised land. A close look at their deathbed wishes, as seen through the rabbinic imagination, offers insights into the mitzvah of caring for the dead and the nature of true loving kindness. Jacob's instructions to Joseph around his burial are articulated with some humility and deference, considering he's not speaking to an equal or even a superior, but to his son. He says, if I have found favor in your eyes, treat me with loving kindness and truth. Do not bury me in Egypt. Perhaps Jacob realizes that he will be powerless to enforce any wishes that he has. Indeed, all of us are. We will not be around to direct our own funerals, and so we can only request of others to comply with our wishes. There's a midrash on this verse from Genesis Rabbah, a big compendium of midrash on the book of Genesis, that questions the meaning of the phrase loving kindness and truth, chesed ve'emet, explaining that it in fact refers to true loving kindness, chesed shel emet. But what other kind of loving kindness is there, the rabbis ask? Can there be a false loving kindness? So the rabbis, they ask a question, and they usually answer it themselves. So they answer their own questions by the means of a parable. They say a person who shows false loving kindness will carry the casket of his friend's son, but not of his friend. Why? Well, such a person is clearly acting with the expectation that the favor be reciprocated. If he carries his friend's son's casket, then he is likely his friend will return the favor and carry his. But he does not bother to carry his friend's casket because his friend, now dead, is unable to return the favor. True loving kindness, explain the rabbis, is performed without any expectation of reciprocity. And thus, the ultimate act of true loving kindness, according to the rabbis, is caring for the dead. But I think we could even take that forward in our lives about true loving kindness is not asking for anything in return. Joseph, in keeping with his father's request, asked Pharaoh's permission to depart from Egypt to bury his father in Canaan, and Pharaoh acceded, said, sure. Joseph then led a whole funeral procession comprised of Egyptian dignitaries and his own brothers who buried Jacob with his ancestors before returning to Egypt. The Talmud, in an extended passage about reward and punishment, teaches that Joseph buried his father, but none of his sons were expected to return that favor for him. He left it to future generations. The only person who could accord Joseph the honor, according to the tradition, was Moses. And thus it was Moses, who Joseph, of course, didn't know, who merited Moses, who takes the responsibility to take Joseph's bones back up to the land of Israel at the time of the Exodus. Yes, they know where they remember the story, and they say, we got to take Joseph's bones with us. Interesting, whole nother sermon, but to think about what it means to take the bones of your ancestors, metaphorically perhaps, as we go from place to place. So Moses displayed kindness in bearing Joseph, and on account of Moses' kindness in bearing Joseph, God, according to the tradition, buries Moses. God's act in bearing Moses is supposed to be a model for all of us, as we learn in a passage on the next page of the Talmud. What it means to walk in God's ways. It says, just as the Holy One buried the dead, so shall you, citing God's burial of Moses. These are not acts of reciprocity. Neither Jacob nor Joseph nor Moses are able to return the favor, but rather cases in which one act of loving kindness generates others. This is an idea that Dr. Devorah Steinmetz explores in an essay about her experience as a kidney donor, which was published in the Jewish Week a decade ago. Steinmetz relates that after she donated her kidney to a young Israeli dental student, his grateful and effusive mother kept trying to shower her in gifts. Steinmetz insisted that she would not accept anything, but the woman persisted, so Steinmetz shared with her a lesson about loving kindness. He says, when someone does chesed for you, You want to find a way to pay them back, to reciprocate the chesed that they have done. But in most cases, you can't ever do that. Yet there is a way you can pay them back, and that is by doing chesed for somebody else. Loving kindness, Steinmetz teaches, is about paying it forward. Sometime later, the mother shared with Steinmetz that her son had decided that when he became a dentist, he intended to set aside one day each month in her name to treat people who could not afford to pay. The mother was unable to return the favor, but for Steinmetz it was clear the reward had come nevertheless. I don't know whether he will do exactly that, writes Steinmetz, but I did feel in a most powerful way that this young man and his parents were now recipients of the Torah that I had learned, the Torah of Chesed, and that my own acts, my wish, will generate more acts of Chesed in the world. So may we go about our days trying to engage in acts of Hesed Shalamet, of true loving kindness that isn't asking for anything to be reciprocated. In our modern day parlance, somebody might say random acts of kindness, right? That we can do. And perhaps then those acts will spread to others as well. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn now to page 253 as our thoughts turn to all of those in our lives and in our community who are in need of healing, of body, of mind, of spirit. And we ask that God's healing energies and our healing energies be directed toward them. Misha Berach, middle of page 253. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We ask for blessings upon Rebecca Gilman, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Toback, Rosalind Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakoff, Connie Shapiro, Kathleen Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Jennifer Rudin, Brad Holland, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarsky, Ellery Einstein, Patricia Kramer, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Craig Sachs, Simon Saul, Myra White, Lori Snyder, Charity Razaday, Mike Klein, Lily Morrison, Barbara Fast, Joel Beasy, Burton Gershman, David Bush, Howard Bush, Lawson Spicer, Mark Fenton, Gloria Foster, Rita Warshaw, Ira Quatcher, Robert Gerard, Stephen Arzt, Adele Harris, Brenda Fountain Gerard, Ron Friedlander, Harvey Sherman, Jan Marcus, Fred Fable, Marla Fragosa, Candy Stevens, Martin Cole, Al Shapiro, Charles Nelson, Jeff Nelson, James Stead, Max Shriva, Larry Kubel, Jayla Kubel, Gina Eli, Robert Waldman, John Rogers, Barry Gustafaro, Judith Gratz-Delang, and Beirach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I'd like to invite Candy Fisher to come forward and share some announcements on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Hello and Shabbat Shalom and Happy New Year, Happy Secular New Year. What a lovely way to start the new year than with a presentation, a sermon from our rabbi about acts of loving kindness. So I'd like to begin by thanking Rabbi for the service this evening and for Randy Polivoy for the beautiful music, of course, and for Claudia Gonzalez for her technical expertise in bringing our service to those out in our congregation. So I'd like to just make a couple of announcements about some upcoming events this week. By this time, you've all received an invitation to the Red Carpet Night Movable Feast. It's coming up February 4th, barely even a little bit more than 30 days from now, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Please respond as soon as you can so that there will be a spot for you. And the reason I'm pausing a little bit here, I'm going to be very honest. I have my messages on my phone and I'm waiting for it to boot up for me. So while I'm waiting for it to respond, I'd like to also thank our greeters, Kylie Sykes, Sarah Truitt, Debbie Harris, and Judy Rose. I'd also like to thank Harriet Botwin for the beautiful flowers and the candles at the Oneg. So I know that I've forgotten other events coming up this week. That's what you do when you rely on technology instead of some notes. So hopefully Rabbi will fill in. But thank you to Randy for the beautiful music again. And I say Shabbat Shalom to those here and in our online audience. Shabbat Shalom.
Just check your Kahila or your TBI update for upcoming things. As we're coming out of our couple of weeks that are a little bit slower as we've been on break. Some of us, those who still have somebody in some school of some sort, we've had some break time. So. Just look at your update, and if you have any questions, go to the TBI website as well, tbipomona.org. We're going to move toward the conclusion of our service to page 282. Page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach. I'll invite everybody who's comfortable doing so to please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש Baruch Hu. 287. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may be seated. Page 294. Our thoughts turn to those who have been important in our lives and have left this earth, those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past. We remember the recent deaths of Edwin Okada, father of Joshua Okada, of Clara Zink, mother of Carrie Knoll, Joan Cohn, aunt of Adele Harris, Rick Duran, relative of Steve Eli, Rosalind Lerner, grandmother of Emily Lerner. We remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Shirley Abrams, Samuel Freeberg, David Hurwitz, Max Cantor, Sarah Cantor, Dale J. Laub, Arthur Licht, David Resnick, Albert Cadis, Rupert Davenport, Jacob Rochester, Herb Snedeker, Rose Watkins, Eleanor Wine, Ron Frankel, Lenore Hirsch, Helen Strub, Esther Victor, Harry Bergen, Michael Greenstein, Morton Grossman, Lillian Rudin, David Mose Hirsch, William Raskin, Jennifer Pax Smith, Larry Treadwell, Nancy Block, Daniel Horowitz. For those of you at home, if you have people that you're remembering, you can put their name in the chat. Those of you in the congregation, if you're remembering somebody and you would like to add their name to the list or restate a name I've mentioned, please do so as I come by your row. If you're in a time of mourning or observing Yortzeit on the Shabbat, I invite you to please rise. And I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise in embrace and support of those who mourn. Kaddish, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitnomam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dukudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing. And we'll close with Biyado, which you'll find is the last stanza on page 321. Biyado afki ruchi, ve'tishan ve'aira, ve'im ruchi Adonai li velo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai li velo ira, my soul I give to you. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. My spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Be'ado afkid ruchi. Be'ado afkid ruchi. Be'tishan ve'ayira. Ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai li velo ira. Ve'im ruchi geviati. Adonai li velo ira. For those of you online, thank you for being with us. Shabbat Shalom. For those of you in the sanctuary, please join us in the social hall for kiddush, motzi, and refreshments. There is juice and wine just as you enter right there to your left, and then we'll move to the